In the heart of a peaceful suburban neighborhood, nestled between rows of cozy homes with well-tended gardens, there lay a quiet park. The park was a gathering place for the residents of Maplewood Grove, a place where children played, dog walkers chatted, and the elderly found solace on weathered benches beneath the shade of ancient oaks. On a crisp autumn evening, when the sun dipped below the horizon and twilight embraced the neighborhood, Daniel Mitchell decided to take his dog, Rosie, for their routine stroll through the park. He was an unassuming man in his late 30s, with a warm smile and a penchant for small-town life. Daniel had lived in Maplewood Grove his entire life, and nothing out of the ordinary had ever disturbed the serenity of the neighborhood. As Daniel and Rosie made their way along the park's winding path, he couldn't help but admire the beauty of the fall foliage. The leaves had turned shades of fiery red and burnished gold, carpeting the ground in a vibrant tapestry. It was a picturesque scene that had always brought him a sense of comfort. But on that evening, as Daniel approached the small wooden bridge that crossed a gentle stream, he noticed something unusual: a figure standing by the bridge, obscured by the dimming light of dusk. The figure was tall and motionless, and its presence sent a shiver down his spine. Daniel stopped in his tracks, his grip on Rosie's leash tightening involuntarily. He squinted, trying to discern the identity of the mysterious figure. It appeared to be a person dressed in a long, dark coat that billowed around him like a cloak. What was most unsettling, however, was the grotesque mask that concealed their face, a pale, expressionless visage with hollow eyes and a sinister grin. "Hello," Daniel called out tentatively, his voice trembling with a mixture of curiosity and unease. Rosie growled softly, her hackles raised in response to the eerie figure. The mask was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen, a macabre blend of carnival and nightmare. It seemed entirely out of place in the tranquil park, and he couldn't fathom why anyone would wear such a thing. There was no response from the masked figure. It simply stood there, motionless as a statue, its lifeless eyes fixed on Daniel. The silence that followed was thick with tension, and Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Feeling a wave of unease wash over him, Daniel decided to take a step back, intending to leave the park and avoid any potential confrontation. But as he turned to go, he heard a strange, whispering sound. The masked figure was speaking, its voice barely audible but carrying an unsettling, sing-song quality. Come, Daniel," it murmured, its words sending a chill down his spine. "Come closer. I have something to show you." The masked figure began to move, taking slow, deliberate steps toward him. Panic welled up inside Daniel, and he turned to flee, pulling Rosie along with him. But as he ran, he dared to glance over his shoulder and saw the masked figure following, its pace unhurried but relentless. Daniel's heart raced as he sprinted through the park, his footsteps echoing in the quiet evening. He reached his home, his breath coming in ragged gasps, and slammed the front door shut, locking it behind him. He peered out of the window, his heart still pounding, but the masked figure was nowhere to be seen. What on earth was that? He whispered to himself, his hands trembling. Rosie, sensing his fear, nuzzled his hand reassuringly. The encounter left Daniel shaken and perplexed. He couldn't make sense of what had just transpired. Who was the masked figure, and what did they want from him? He decided to contact the police, hoping they could shed some light on the unsettling encounter. Officer Maria Hernandez arrived at Daniel's doorstep, a look of concern etched on her face. She listened carefully to his account of the bizarre encounter in the park. "I've never heard of anything like this happening in Maplewood Grove," Officer Hernandez said, scratching her head in puzzlement. "We'll keep an eye on the area, but there's not much we can do without more information." Daniel thanked the officer for her assistance, but deep down, he knew that something was terribly wrong. He couldn't shake the feeling that the masked figure held some malevolent purpose, and that this eerie encounter was just the beginning of a nightmare that would engulf his once peaceful neighborhood. As the days turned into weeks, the unsettling presence of the masked figure loomed over Maplewood Grove like a dark cloud. More residents reported eerie encounters, each more terrifying than the last. Some claimed to have heard strange whispers in the dead of night, while others said they had glimpsed the masked figure lurking in the shadows. Fear spread like wildfire, and the once close-knit community began to unravel. Neighbors turned on one another, accusing one another of being the masked figure or aiding them in their sinister deeds. Children no longer played in the park, and the elderly residents stayed behind locked doors. Daniel couldn't escape the feeling that he was being watched, that the masked figure was lurking just beyond his sight. He became obsessed with uncovering the truth, spending sleepless nights poring over books on local history and folklore, searching for any clue that could explain the figure's malevolent presence. One evening, as he delved deeper into his research, Daniel stumbled upon a chilling legend and a tale of a vengeful spirit said to roam Maplewood Grove, seeking retribution for a terrible wrong committed long ago. The spirit was said to don a grotesque mask, concealing its identity as it carried out its sinister mission. The legend sent shivers down his spine, and Daniel couldn't help but wonder if the masked figure he had encountered was the embodiment of this vengeful spirit. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that he had to confront the figure and put an end to its reign of terror. With newfound determination, Daniel decided to gather a group of brave residents who were willing to help him unmask the evil that had descended upon their neighborhood. They formed a makeshift neighborhood watch, armed with flashlights and a shared resolve to uncover the truth. Their first patrol through the park was tense, with each step accompanied by the fear of what they might encounter. The night was quiet, and the moon cast eerie shadows among the trees. Daniel's heart raced as he led the group toward the wooden bridge where he had first encountered the masked figure. And then, as if emerging from the very darkness itself, the masked figure appeared. It stood on the bridge, its grotesque mask illuminated by the pale moonlight. The figure's presence seemed to exude malevolence, and a chilling hush fell over the group. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded, his voice quivering but resolute. The masked figure remained silent, its hollow eyes fixed on him. It raised a gloved hand, beckoning him closer with a slow, deliberate motion. "Come closer, Daniel," it whispered, its voice a haunting echo of their first encounter. "I have something to show you." The members of the neighborhood watch stood their ground, their flashlights trained on the figure. They refused to be paralyzed by fear this time. "You won't terrorize our neighborhood any longer," one of the residents declared, taking a step forward. With a sudden, fluid motion, the masked figure turned and fled, disappearing into the inky blackness of the park. Neighborhood Watch gave chase, determined to finally unmask the evil that had haunted their community. As they pursued the figure through the park, they were led deeper into the heart of Maplewood Grove. The chase became a surreal journey, with the masked figure seeming to defy the laws of nature, slipping through shadows and eluding capture. Finally, in a clearing surrounded by ancient trees, they cornered the figure. It turned to face them, its mask gleaming in the moonlight. With a sense of dread, Daniel and the others realized that this was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment when they would finally unmask the evil that had terrorized their neighborhood. With trembling hands, Daniel reached out and slowly, painstakingly, began to lift the mask from the figure's face. As the mask was revealed, gasps of shock and horror escaped the onlookers. What they saw beneath the mask was a reflection of their own fear and darkness, a reflection of themselves. The masked figure's face was a mirror, reflecting the deepest fears and secrets of those who beheld it. It was a symbol of the darkness that had taken hold of their once peaceful neighborhood, a darkness born of suspicion, paranoia, and mistrust. In that moment of revelation, the masked figure spoke, its voice a haunting chorus of whispers that echoed with the voices of the residents. "You have unmasked the true evil that haunts this neighborhood," it intoned. "It is the darkness within yourselves, the fear, the mistrust, the paranoia that has torn your community apart." The residents of Maplewood Grove stood in stunned silence, coming to terms with the truth of their own actions. The masked figure had been a reflection of their own collective fear, a manifestation of the darkness that could reside within each of them. With a final, mournful whisper, the figure disappeared into the night, leaving the residents to confront the consequences of their own actions. They had unmasked the true evil within themselves, and now it was up to them to rebuild their shattered community. In the days that followed, Maplewood Grove began the long process of healing. The residents acknowledged the role they had played in their own descent into fear and mistrust, and they made a collective effort to restore the sense of community that had once defined their neighborhood. The masked figure became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of allowing fear to divide and conquer. Maplewood Grove learned that the true evil they had faced was not an external force but the darkness that could reside within each of them. As the years passed, the neighborhood flourished once more, its gardens blooming with vibrant colors, its streets filled with the laughter of children at play, and its residents bound together by a shared commitment to unity and trust. But on quiet, moonlit nights, some residents claimed to hear faint whispers in the wind, a reminder that the true battle against evil was an ongoing one, a battle fought not with masks and shadows, but with the light of understanding and the strength of a united community.